All right, we got sports fantasy, gaming's least appreciated genre. Oh boy, I'm excited.
Let's not spend too much time establishing things. Football. The ball goes forward towards a net. You can buy it
hmm
as FIFA, PES, and don't get tricked by this one. It's actually a cleverly disguised Excel. Skyrim.
Oh god, is that what that was? The sports manager? I remember that when that came out, I was like, what the fuck is the point of this? Who's gonna play this? And also, at least with football or soccer slash football, it's very easy to understand as just a regular person. Just where's the action? It's probably at the ball. Easy to understand.
Get a quest to go to a cave and engage in the worst combat of your life for the next 5 minutes to bring the Springle Dungan to your quest giver. That's the next 50 hours of your life, and you can buy it
Yeah,
as Skyrim or most video games. What do these two sets of games have in common?
they're games.
Not a lot. Considering games about sport sell about the same as, if not more than games about fantasy, the word in this case meaning fiction and unreality as opposed to wizards and incest, it can be odd to acknowledge the isolation between these two sectors of games that has them appeal to extremely different people. Your typical male living space has a PlayStation with two different copies of whatever sports game is culturally relevant, plus Forza. But the living space of your average Reddit admin has three copies of games he's only ever described as you're playing it wrong. Fundamentally, these two branches of games end up being so different from one another that the rift is only natural. When one set of games is built on things that don't exist, with the common methodology to complete tasks being killing, and the other is a digitization of something bound by human limitation and
Yeah.
the moral standing that handballs don't warrant a beheading, there's very little opportunity for either side to influence one
Yeah.
another. However, every once in a while, these two concepts collide, and in the brewery of game development emerges one of the most underappreciated subgenres, the sports fantasy.
Oh,
You played
baby.
football with Mario? That's one of them. With a car? That's another. On the street? Well, it's not intrinsically a fantasy, but there's more nuance going on here. While I'd isolate sports games as titles attempting to estimate real-world sport through the medium of games, sports fantasy is a lot more loose on what it can be. On the more conservative side, you've got games like FIFA and NBA Street that are both similar to their direct sports counterparts with very gamey additions. And on the other, you've got games like Roller Champions, completely disconnected from any real-world sport that uses games as a vehicle to create something that could only be described as sport. If we use these two to
The heck?
plot point
Like when you showed me that scene, I am instantly remembering what was the sports part of Final Fantasy 7. Was it 7? No, it was 10. There was like I forgot, it was like something ball. It's like you had like two people, or not two people. You had like it was either 4v4 or 3v3 or something. And then you're like in a pool, but everybody can breathe in it, so it's weird. And you're just like trying to swim to the other side and throw the ball in like the goal or something. There was like that version of a fantasy sport, and then also you got to remember the goated Harry Potter sports spinoff of Quidditch. That was actually a good fantasy sport. That was another banger. I hope you mentioned that.
points between how willing they are to stray from reality, you can plop every game somewhere along this spectrum.
Yeah.
And in every single one of them, I found little gems of ideas about games. While I understand why these games often get ignored by the core gaming audience, I think we should at least take the opportunity to explore these games a little, because for me at the very least, they've taken concepts that bore me to tears and turned them into some of my favorite games that, quite frankly, nobody that I respect seems to care about.
What was it? Mario Strikers Charged Retrospective and FIFA Street is genius. And here's why. Oh man, I might go watch these. But yeah, dude, like sports fantasy games, it's like they took the rule book of their sport and then figured out where they could elaborate on certain rules. Like so like from my perspective, I got a lot of friends that watch football, and over the course of the like time, a lot of the time they're like always telling me like, oh, it's gotten so soft this the longer it goes around, they're trying to protect the football players. And same thing with MMA, or at least with football. It's like you can't tackle the the quarterback anymore as like what you used to be able to do in like previous years. So now since that part is like softer, you have just like there's like certain things that like you can't do anymore just because they're trying to make the sport safer. So what these fantasy sports games are doing is they're trying to take those rules and just turn them up to 10. But like, what if you could? All right. So like in the case for what is this, Rocket League? You know, you can literally just demolition other cars. You can't demolition another a player. I mean, you could slide tackle them, but then you'll get like carded or something. But I mean, but yeah, it's that's the case.
Like, football's boring, right? Probably a contentious statement if I was to head down to the local spoons, but for me, I really don't like watching it. By proxy, I don't really like games that are it. That's not because football is intrinsically boring as a video game, but when the game's goal is to emulate it, it doesn't really make leverage of what video games as a medium can do. Every year FIFA releases, they put roadblocks in their systems and rules, not because that would be best for the video game that you're playing, but because that's how the game that already exists is. You've got 11 players you can barely organize, and players get boo-boos because EA isn't making a game.
Oh my God! Again with the soccer, like drama of getting an injury in soccer. Oh my God! This is like the most joke of a sport I've ever watched. I really believe that there are no worse fakers in the world worse than soccer. Soccer has the worst like injury fakers just to get a free shot at the goal.
Game.
Soccer is not a real sport.
Making football. If you're the kind of person who willingly calls themselves a gamer, first of all, have some shame. And secondly, these...
Yeah, what do you call it? The Dead or Alive volleyball game is more of a sport than soccer, football.
Steps to make the game authentic come across as arbitrary. When I've been believing I can block this four-way mix-up for the last 4 years, I'm struggling to buy into the big offside rule in the sky. So get rid of it. And while we're at it, get rid of injuries, most of the players, add some walls, and boom, we've just hit every single English person with a nostalgia wave.
Yeah.
FIFA Street is one of the most underappreciated games of the mid-2000s, not because it wasn't successful or remembered fondly, but because it's not discussed by the core gaming audience. Using FIFA...
Bro, you know how like Super Smash Melee has like a cult following and has kept that game going for like 20-something years? Where are the cult followings for these like closet sports games? Like, why isn't FIFA Street? Like, where's that community of like soccer enjoyers, like just clinging on to that game if it's so good? I mean, you got the fighting game community doing that for Super Smash Melee. Why isn't there a community just growing for these awesome sports fantasy games that happened in the past? That needs to happen. I would be shocked if that happened. I would love that.
FIFA is a base.
Instead of clinging on to the fucking what is this? Like FIFA 2023, 2024. Oh, my booster packs. I ripped some cool ones out of this booster pack. I spent like 10K on all these packs, man. Look at my fantasy team. Oh my God. This game is awesome. God.
Streets, not that one, turns towards 4-a-side matches and blocked out cages to use the sport as a method to create an interesting game. Instead of solely having to rely on the positioning of your teammates to work your way up the pitch, here you have a trick system that lets you maneuver the ball around your opponent and into spaces that lets you take on entire teams as a one-man army.
Yeah, this actually looks way more cooler to watch because it's way less players to keep track of.
This game be direct. If you want to challenge the guy in front of you, you can. And you can still be indirect. In fact, you can be as indirect as you like. Rebound the ball off of the arena to make for opportunities that wouldn't normally exist, letting you connect the team in ways that aren't as direct as the computer calculating where the ball has to travel to go to the next player. All of this comes together with a combo meter that encourages use of all of these systems, building towards a super that turns your next shot into a lightning bolt that's only blocked by miracle. These systems chain together to guide the player in a way that's much more familiar to conventional games, giving players who don't care about football football, me, a path to engaging with more of the fun even in the face of a concept that they don't care for. Tricks are a method of building meter and overcoming opponents.
Yeah, I never would have thought that sentence would ever have been said. Tricks build your meter in the football game. So that sentence should like not exist. But it does, and it's in this game, and it's awesome.
So players are passively drawn to hacking up someone's shins, which is in itself its own little drip reward. As you're doing this, you're working your way up the pitch almost passively, which generates opportunity to actually score while also building meter. Every time you take on a player or take a shot, you're building up this literal resource in the combo meter, but in your mind, what you're interpreting as fun is the tension of expectation. Unlike in normal FIFA, where that release can feel random and unclear if you don't understand the sport, FIFA Street has a big button that's screaming at you to get up to their net so you can get your sweet, sweet dopamine. All this new stuff creates a tension and release along with little rewards along the way that's more familiar to traditional games, peeling away the requirement to care about the footy to enjoy the footy. In that way, FIFA Street is like a lot of the sports fantasy of the time. The highlight was what was new, the stuff that exists in this game that doesn't exist in real life, and the additions to the pre-existing concept. In Mario Strikers, that's the items and the clearly goofy stuff going on.
Oh god, there's like so much random shit happening. Like you got Mario items in the Mario Soccer. What the fuck is this?
A game like Klonoa Beach Volleyball took the most...
Like, what does the blue shell do? Like, does it just home in onto the person that has the soccer ball and just blows them up?
Common route of adding supers. It's too bad they couldn't have made one of the supers some franchise staying power after the 2000s, but, you know, whatever, I'm only a little bitter. Supers might have been because of Street Fighter, maybe because of Tony Hawk, which is getting skipped over in this video because I've already talked about it for an hour. Point is, the focus was always on what was new. What exists in this game that can't exist in others while remaining sport ball. But what I think is an underappreciated aspect that makes a lot of these games work as games is what they remove. For as much as seeing Donkey Kong top a Shy Guy is cathartic in a way, it wouldn't matter if the rules that normally give soccer this stop-start pace that's stupid to me as a guy that's holding a controller was still in play. That's a part of what lets FIFA Street maintain this energy and value outside of just nostalgia.
Dang.
No throw-ins, no offside, and most importantly, no VAR or ref! It lets the
What the heck is VAR? I got no idea what that is, but now that you brought that up, I really like the concept of like no out of bounds because it keeps the matches shorter. And I don't know, what is this, like a 1-to-5 deal? Or like whoever has the most points at the end of 5 minutes like is the winner. This is closer to Rocket League. And Rocket League is super successful. And like Rocket League is just race car soccer. That's all it is. I don't know. I kind of like this version too, like as well.
Pace of the match be all in all the time and creates a flow that's more suitable to me as a player holding a controller, making for a game that I'm...
Imagine if Rocket League could implement like these combos to like, I mean, Rocket League kind of has it with like all their like tap, double tap, aerial, reverse, whatever. I don't know. I'm just talking about random things. Like Rocket League kind of has like a combo system, but it's very free flow, and everything is just based off like how much turbo you have and how much skill you have to like manipulate the ball and whatnot. But I don't know. This is like, it just seems like Rocket League diet, like Diet Rocket League. It seems like
I'm hyped to get stuck into instead of a game that... From here, the new systems get a chance to shine. And that's cool, a big thumbs up, absolutely livid that they got rid of the ball speed up and charged, but you know, what's one more straw to the camel's back? Ultimately though, I think that the removal of rules that you often see shows that the appeal of most sports fantasy games is a little more fundamental than the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Like, charged is great, but once the stages start to get a bit more hectic, I'm quick to call for a substitution. What's appealing here isn't just random chaos to put the narwhal bacons at midnight to shame, and different games in the genre add and retract systems unrelated to one another. So my theory on what actually makes these games cohesive and collectively scratch the same part of my ape brain is the structure of sport. Alright, this isn't gonna make...
I mean, to be fair, Well, this is just like an observation. A lot of these games are just like soccer spin-offs. Like this is, there's a goal, on the other side, the ball, and you just got to get the ball in the goal. Same thing with FIFA, same thing with Mario Strikers. It's like you can make a bunch of different versions of soccer and it'll probably be good.
Makes sense for a bit, but like, stick with me here. Think about an FPS or a fighting game at its most fundamental core.
Or what was it? What was that football game where you could go on fire? Was it NFL Blitz? It was like so many years ago, and I played it when I was a little kid. I think it was like NFL Blitz 2K or something, where if you did enough stuff, like you could accumulate some sort of like power bar or something, and then whenever you sprinted, you had to like spam the sprint button. You could sprint faster if you were on fire. I remember that game very fondly. That was probably like one of the few sports games I liked growing up as a little kid, and that game was awesome.
You have the player, another player, and the goal is to get rid of either one of each other. In
Yeah.
that, there are 5 parts of play: the avatar, the medium, the method, the obstacle, and the goal. In games that have been designed from the construct of combat, most of the time these elements exist as a portion of either side of play. You exist as the avatar, which exists with the method, being guns to attacks or life points or whatever, to interact with the medium. In this case, eliminating what is the other that exists in both a state of obstacle and goal. This is inverted on either side, which is a part of what makes games around the prospect of elimination interesting. The conflict that comes from the same goal and how they directly impact one another. The conflict is key here, and what the sports fantasy does.
Well, yeah, it's just simply the other guy has a health bar, and you got to take it away. In fighting games, in FPS, he got a health bar, and I gotta just make it go to 0. That's it.
That's interesting is that they create a new construct of conflict. Instead of having the medium and the goal be connected to the avatars, they're removed from the player and put in a position of neutrality. The ball does not exist as an object of either side, and so the conflict is directed around the control of the medium, which can change at any time. This creates a very fundamentally different kind of conflict, where you're fighting to impart properties onto an object, but that object being neutral means there are no truly positive properties. To help me,
I wonder if you could apply this concept to like different sports, because soccer is just so free flow back and forth, and there's no like timeouts or whatever. There's no pauses like in baseball or football. What else? Golf. You take a swing, you gotta walk and swing again, or like wait for everybody else to go. I'm trying to think of like some other sports. I don't know.
Let me illustrate what I'm getting at.
Welcome to Lethal League Blaze.
Oh, this game. I forgot about this game.
I'm going to call.
Oh my god, Lethal League is the shit. Thank you for mentioning Lethal League. I was thinking about this, and I'm like, I hope he mentions this game, but I couldn't I forgot the name. Oh my god, Lethal League was so good.
All a sports fantasy because I want it in the thumbnail, but also because it has a neutral medium that both players impart properties of direction and speed onto. The goal is simply to hit your opponent with the ball at enough speed to KO them. You could argue this is a fighting game for that reason. Intellectuals looking to have that discussion, please head to the nearest electric chair. While both players are likely to seek to speed the ball up, someone who has been imparting speed on the ball can quickly find they regret picking up the pace as much as they have if it's stolen from them. Now the quality that they deemed positive is being used against them because the property is fundamentally neutral. In that neutrality, another player might simply let them put speed on the ball because they plan to use it against them later. This makes Lethal League especially this really interesting game of both controlling the ball and knowing how to get the position and properties you're looking for, while also trying to figure out what your opponent is looking for and how they might try to turn those properties against you. Here that's felt literally, but in other sports fantasy that same feeling runs through, just presented in new ways. Oftentimes it's positioning that felt like your opponent was closing in, turning into the opponent opening themselves up. and other times it's what felt like a lucky save turning into an unlucky own goal.
Yeah.
The neutrality creates this elaborate extension to the tug-of-war conflict. And
I can really appreciate games. Where was it?
Goal, the neutrality.
I can really appreciate games that try to make a new sport, because I remember when I was a little kid, what was this? There was this thing on TV where I think it was called like roller derby, and you had a bunch of people on rollerblades, and I think they were going the other way, like this guy. And your goal was to, and it was like two teams on the ring, and I think it was 3v3 or 4v4. And the goal was to just get your like single person to lap the other team's like a person on the other team. You got to get them to lap, and that's how you get a point. But there's a bunch of different ways to do it. There was like, you had like enforcers, which were like big guys on it wasn't rollerblades. It was like skates, like the four wheels in the corners for more stability. And you had like two big guys that were like enforcers, and then maybe you had like another guy that was like a flex, and he could do like kind of a little bit of whatever. And then you had like the small fast person that you could whip around. Yeah, and there was a move called like a whip, where like you take an arm and you grab the guy's arm, and then the front person, which is usually an enforcer, they would like just yank and, boost the other person that had to lap around to like just give them more speed. And that literally just reminded me, like this game, that's what it reminded me of.
Creates this elaborate extension to the tug-of-war conflict, and while some games are better at capitalizing on it than others, that to me is the connective tissue that I think made me enjoy all of these games that are ultimately very different from one another. And I don't know if you caught on, that's the joy of sport. Not all sports, expression sports obviously have the ape scratching at different areas, but ball sports, ball games are all connected by the central appeal where neutrality creates conflict, which creates interaction, direct or otherwise. That was the game design gems that each of these games kept bringing to the table.
Yeah, the ball. There's just something about ball sports that it's easy to latch onto, it's easy to watch, and because it's so neutral, you can do a bunch of different iterations with a ball.
And how those games go about bringing out that neutrality determines how they shine. And FIFA and other true sports games keep bringing shards of smashed Budweiser they found on the ground to the table.
Yeah.
They got their shins. The ones I find are the least glamorous.
I mean, the reason they keep doing that is because players keep buying them and spending money on them, really.
Tend to be the ones that aren't confident in their core design, so they lean too hard on the gamer set dressing. I'm specifically thinking about Omega Strikers, which was a game I was really excited for, but it relies too much on the MOBA angle. All the different characters with abilities.
MOBA soccer. I mean, this is a unique idea.
And cooldowns, and there's an XP system. There's just a lot of fluff. It places way too much emphasis on the avatar, moving the focus away from the neutrality of the puck and how you interact with it towards a more conventional combat environment. The neutral space feels like an afterthought. Also, every time I look at it, I feel like I'm in an environment for tweens who aspire to be VTubers, and as someone who's old enough to be on the other side of the stranger danger rule, I can't comfortably be here.
Yeah. I mean, arguably, I would say this is like a more high skill game. And who do you think has like the more like high skill? Someone that's like really young or like a little bit older? Probably the person that's a little bit older. So this game probably could have marketed itself probably toward like at least to like, I don't know, 16 to like 25 instead of like 8 to, I don't know, 15 or something. With all the like chibis running around and, with all the little heads that were up there. Like, MOBAs are hard, dude.
be on the other side of the stranger danger rule, I can't comfortably be here. Mario Strikers Charge did this right. There's still a decent amount of avatar variety, but the glowing ball speed up mechanic meant that all the focus was put on the ball. And when you stole it back from the opponent, whether you cleared the charge or not, you were actually interacting with the team through the neutral object. This game is goated, very shiny. The Holy Grail, though, is unsurprisingly Rocket League. It's so good. The car feels so good. The fact that nobody can hold possession of the ball just keeps the ball truly neutral at all time. The skill floor is below sea level, and the skill ceiling is just... I'm never gonna hit that. I'm sure you knew that, though. It's one of the most popular games on Steam, a marketplace you can't even buy it from anymore for a good reason. And while I can sit here and try to explain to you why you should care about the design values and your own personal journey with a car or Mario or a Ronaldo, I think he's on screen, I don't know football. All these qualities aren't fully expressible through words in a YouTube video. You should experience it for yourself. I get it. It's not like Street Fighter 6. You can't install a big titty mod for your car. But these games...
I'm pretty sure there's someone that figured that out. I'm pretty sure that mod exists.
Games that probably don't seem like they're up your alley are diamonds in the rough waiting to be found and rekindle your love for video games. Put down your Venom for a second with your KSHS ball setup that... Oh, wait. This is actually still fun. I don't want to put this down. Put it down and try some of these games. Got it?
So kind of what it seems like is like the games that he's describing, they don't really have a defined meta solved, because when a meta is defined and is discovered by the general player base, first it originates at the upper echelons of the players at the top 99th percentile. And then once they discover it, they figure out what's good and what's bad, and then it trickles down to the next, and then eventually everybody just assumes the same weapons, the same loadout, so on and so forth of what's good. This is good. This character is good. These guns are good. And then once the meta is figured out, then the game is more or less on a downward spiral in terms of popularity, because the game has been solved. And with these soccer spin-off games, it's there is no real defined meta, and it's always in this free flow state from what he's described. And I don't know, I think that's really cool. The meta is literally just going to be defined by how much time and effort that you could put in and express your skill in the game.
All right, good hustle. Here's a recommendation list. I'll see you all in a month.
Nice.
Also, Patreon.
Dang. No, this is a good ass video, dude. 100%. I like this. I like sports fantasy games. And I don't know, I haven't played them in a while. Maybe I'll go back to them. But this is a good video, 100%, man. I'm looking forward to the next one. For sure. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I'll see you guys on the next one. Later.